to welcome everybody to another episode of the Athlete to Athlete series. We are now in week 8, and so I'm fired up. We got 2 more episodes left to go for this series. It's been such an amazing time. We've covered so many topics, so many great topics, such as leadership, nutrition, having a championship season, so many great things, recruiting as well. Last week we had John Gordon and a few others, Jeff Rancour. We had a great conversation about how to be a better leader. And this week, I wanted to cover a special topic of injury prevention because I know that there's so many athletes out there who are dealing with challenges because of COVID, because of the fact that the offseason was cut short. And so I thought it'd be powerful just to bring on some experts in the field of, physical therapy, orthopedics, rehabilitation, to just share with you all some powerful tools and tips. And so, first and foremost, though, I want to introduce myself. My name is Rennie Curran. I am a former professional athlete, keynote speaker, author, and the CEO of Game Changer Coaching. I want to tell you all about my foundation as well that was launched last year. And so we've been around for a year and a half. It's called the Game Changers Foundation. I always make sure to give you all a spill before we get things rolling. But basically, Game Changers Foundation, our mission is to help current and former athletes in sports, business, and life. And we do that through 3 ways: through community engagement, mentorship, and professional development. And our whole goal is to help former athletes get back into the community to create that impact, and also really help the current athletes who are playing now be in the position to one day make an impact as well through all those 3 initiatives that we just mentioned. And because of COVID, we all know that things shifted. A lot of companies, including ourselves, we had to pivot. So our original plan was to be able to go into a lot of different schools and be able to do exactly this, have panel discussions, be able to, have former athletes go and speak. But since COVID has happened, we pivoted to this platform, doing it everything virtual. So we will move forward into the topic for tonight that I'm so excited to present. I touched on it earlier, but really we're talking tonight about preventing injuries. And we're going to give you some tips and tools to help, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a coach, a parent, or athletic director, when it comes to preventing injuries and keeping yourself operating at the most optimal level before, during, and after the season. And when I think about this, I think about my career and just my journey as an athlete, and how when I was young, you can get away with so many things as far as just your body, right? I could put whatever on the bar. I can run as fast as I wanted to. I could lift whatever I wanted to. But when I got around, I'd say 24, 25, it was like everything all of a sudden started to catch up with me. I started having a lot of joint issues. I started pulling my hamstrings a lot. There were just a lot of different things. And how my career ended, much like a lot of athletes, is I ended up tearing my patella tendon. And I don't know if that could have been avoided. Maybe I could have still been playing today if I had gotten with some of these guys. Who knows? But it's so important for us as athletes to have as much knowledge as possible when it comes to our bodies, right? And how it functions, and range of motion, anything that can help us to operate at an optimal level. Because you only get one body, right? You only get one pair of knees, and it has to last you the rest of your life. And so many of us don't think about that when we're playing, when we're young, and when we're strong, right? And I know so many people now who were great athletes back in the day who are now 40, 50, 60 years old, and they're having shoulder surgeries and knee surgeries and all these types of things because of what they put their body through when they're younger. So my whole goal tonight is to really just give you as much education as I can when it comes to injury prevention, and really, like I said, making sure that you have as much knowledge as you can when it comes to your body, so that when you're an athlete and long after your athlete days are over, you're still able to operate efficiently. So that being said, I want to go ahead and introduce my special panelists for tonight. I'm blessed to be able to know some amazing people and have met some people recently, and they were kind enough to take their time to be on here. So I really hope you all take a lot of notes and really dig into what's going to be shared, because they're going to share some powerful stuff. They work with some of the top athletes in the world, and so I'm so fired up to introduce these panelists. The first person that we have is right here in Atlanta. She is a doctor of physical therapy. and her name is Crystal Sterling. I'm going to introduce each person. And I'm going to give them a chance to share a little bit about themselves. So she's a doctor of physical therapy, Crystal Sterling, who specializes in orthopedic care at Active Core in Atlanta, Georgia. She's a former collegiate track and field athlete with experience delivering rehabilitative care to athletes in middle school leagues to all the way to the professional level. As a registered yoga teacher, she also combines mobility and mindfulness techniques into her treatment sessions to aid in her clients' recovery, along with her other postgraduate certifications. As a movement specialist, she regularly performs free injury screenings at community events to help with injury prevention. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Crystal Sterling. Crystal, how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Rennie.
Yeah, definitely. So, tell us a little bit what you've been working on recently in these COVID times, and just a little bit about injury prevention.
Yeah, definitely seeing a lot of injuries from people working out from home or picking up running or different types of home workouts. And that includes kids and athletes alike. So, definitely trying to get them back to what they need to be doing. And Basically, that's a lot of what I've been seeing. I'm actually about to see a track and field athlete, and I saw that Amanda had a question about shin splints. I suffered from that personally when I participated in track and field. So that is the injury that I unfortunately had to work with. Um,
Mhm.
and so I've been definitely working on that a lot and can't wait to talk a little bit more about the red cord apparatus I have at work and that can help identify weak links that cause some of these injuries.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. So, I will now move on to our next amazing panelist. And this gentleman I actually met through Instagram, and he is a legend. He works with some of the most amazing athletes. Like I say, guy that I know that is from right here in Gwinnett, the best sports county in the world. He works with Alvin Kamara, who's like a little brother to me. Also, Mark Ingram, as well, a guy who I played against that played at Alabama. And these guys just rave about Dr. Reef. And they have nothing but great things to say about him, his regimen, the things that he does for them in the off season that helps them to really dominate. And I'm sure he has a million other athletes that he works with that he can tell you about. But I'm gonna tell you all about him briefly. A doctor of physical therapy, Dr. Sharif Taba. I hope I said your last name right.
All
Taba.
good. Tobiah,
Yeah,
yeah, all
Taba.
good.
Okay, there we go. Got it. Commonly known as Dr. Reef, is a doctor of physical therapy, certified strength and conditioning specialist, and the co-founder of Athletics Rehab and Recovery with multiple locations in South Florida. He has a unique approach to fitness, rehab, and injury prevention with an emphasis on balance and dynamic core stability. Over the years, Dr. Reef has worked with hundreds of professional athletes from the NFL, MLB, NBA, WTA, US Olympics, and much more. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Reef. Doc, glad
Thank
to
you
have
so
you on,
much.
man.
Good, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Super excited.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So tell us a little bit about what you've been working on this during these times, and just a little bit about injury prevention from your perspective.
Yeah. So obviously, it's been a super challenging time for everybody, and I think it's really tested our will to find a way to to succeed and to still provide great service to our patients and clients and things like that. So we've had to get extremely creative. During the NFL off season was the peak of that COVID time and shutdowns and quarantines. So we had to get really creative with going to guys' homes and finding ways to get training and rehab done outside. And we ended up getting an Airbnb at one point. Like, it was crazy. So
Wow.
we found a way to kind of get a pop up facility going and making it work. So that's kind of been a challenge, and of course, kind of rolling with the punches with whatever continues to come our way, day
Yeah.
by day with all this chaos. But luckily, amidst all of it, amidst it all, we've been able to just open up our third facility. So we're super excited.
Wow.
Got put on the back burner for about 7 months thanks to COVID, but we finally made it. So I'm super excited about that.
Yeah.
And just I'm hyped to talk about injury prevention. For us, it's a big thing, a big part of what we do. I think that a lot of what we really preach is proactive versus reactive when it comes to
Yep.
physical therapy and injury prevention and performance training. Really just making sure rather than waiting for an injury to pop up, let's do everything we can to go ahead and try to prevent these injuries by attacking different muscles that maybe you don't work that much, or different planes of movement that maybe you don't work that much, or whatever it might
Yeah.
be, to make sure we're getting a well-rounded program to prevent injury in the first place.
Awesome. I love it, man. Thanks for what you shared. And I'm excited to pick your brain, man, and get
Awesome.
everybody knowledge as well, man. Thanks again for being here.
Thank
All
you.
right. Yes, sir. I'm going to introduce our last panelist. This is a guy who I actually worked with during my career. So he helped me out big time, especially, like I said, when I hit around 25, 26, 27, my body started falling apart and I needed, some extra supplements, needed some regenerative medicine. And this guy came through for me multiple times, along with many other doctors. Playing linebacker is like, as you all know, it's like being in a car wreck every single Sunday or Saturday if you're in college. So you got to have an amazing team behind you of individuals like this that can really help you to stay afloat. And so that being said, I'll introduce Doctor of Physical Therapy or Orthopedic Surgeon, Dr. Sadiq El Amin. He is a board certified orthopedic surgeon specializing in sports medicine, shoulder and regenerative medicine, as well as providing sports medicine care and coverage of athletic events. He's the CEO and owner of Elamine Orthopedic and Sports Medicine Institute, a professor of regenerative medicine at Georgia Gwinnett College, and medical director at the Concussion Institute at Gwinnett Medical Center. So he got a lot of titles. He's currently also the team physician for North Gwinnett High School and Lanier High School as well. So Doc, man, I appreciate you being on tonight. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. This is
Yeah.
awesome. Really, really
Yes.
awesome. Really great job in organizing this.
Oh yeah, man, no problem. It's an honor to be able to do it and to be able to give back. And when I think about, like I said, my career, there were guys who were older than me that introduced me to guys like yourself, and that's how I was able to get that knowledge and be proactive, like Dr. Reef said, man. So, with that being said, like, how have you been faring in these times? What are some of your thoughts when it comes to injury prevention?
Well, this has been, like you said, this has been a very challenging time I think, for everyone with COVID. But also, we've had an amazing amount of injuries that we've never seen before. If you
Hmm.
even look at the pro level, the NFL, I mean, they're experiencing injuries that we can't even just keep up with. I mean, and
Wow.
I myself have read more MRIs over the
Mm.
last several weeks than in probably my whole career, because
Wow.
just the amount of injuries that are coming through. And not only just at the pro level, but also in the high school level as well. I mean, we're seeing a lot of injuries, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that the lack of condition. I mean, people were pretty much thrown in quickly, didn't really have a preseason, didn't really give their muscles chance to really sort of kind of build up for what they needed to do, and just sort of kind of just thrown right into the fire. And a lot of the injuries that we're seeing is that happened immediately, but what's happening when fatigue sets in.
Mm.
Players are saying, "Hey, I only did 30 snaps in practice, then I get in the game, and I'm doing 70, and my muscles aren't really ready to handle that, and pull a hamstring or or tear an ACL." So, one of the things that we've had to do is really emphasize understanding your body, being preventive, stretching real well. When you have a small injury, getting on it immediately and not
Hmm.
waiting and saying, I'm okay. Next thing
Right.
you know, that small hamstring becomes a big hamstring, and then you're out.
Mm.
So that's been really our focus at both for me, as both talking and getting these athletes ready at the pro level and high school.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for sharing that, Doc. I'm excited to get more information from you as well, and we'll get going with the questions. And how we're going to structure it is we'll have one direct question for each one of our panelists for them to share, and then after that, we will have some questions that are directed to everybody, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A. So I want you all, as our different panelists are answering, just start thinking about the questions that you want to ask them, and make sure that you take notes because they're about to drop some gems. I got no doubt in my mind. So our first person up is going to be Crystal. So Crystal, when it comes to those young athletes, what are some of the trends you see that are leading to injuries, and what are some of the things that they can do to have a proactive approach when it comes to those injuries?
Yes, I think Dr. Elamine hit the nail on the head about all of what we can do to help prevent injuries. But I'm seeing definitely a lot of strains, even before COVID, lots of hamstring, quad strains, 3 or 4 weeks right after practice starts. So that's really common, and just a lot of imbalances, and also, like he mentioned, difficulty in the patient or the athlete to be able to know their body, which is called proprioception, like where is your body in space, and
Mm.
um, to be able to react and do things like that. Another thing that I want to mention is coming from like a yoga alternative point of view. I think a mental perspective has a lot to do with preventing injuries. And what I've been teaching my clients a lot about is slowing down a little bit. Now, that doesn't mean that you are a slow person, but you do need to kind of slow down the mental chatter that you've got going on. And I know with um, high school athletes and even beyond into college and the professional level, I'm sure there's a lot of pressure and anxiety. And
Mhm.
so I just want to come from that perspective. It does make a difference. And then on top of that, Dr. Elamine mentioned stretching. I like to think of yoga as a way to work on end range strength and improve your balance. And so there's a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm not flexible, and yoga is really hard, and I can't become a pretzel." You don't need to be a pretzel, and you don't need to have the best flexibility in the world, but it can help identify some ways that you have imbalances in the body between length and tightness in certain muscles. And two, that's what I use the red cord apparatus at work to identify what muscles aren't activating properly to get this mind body connection.
Awesome. I love what you shared just about just the imbalances that exist. I mean, in knowing your body, I mean, that's so crucial. And I think, to your point, for many of us, we really, when we're young, we don't really have to know our body, right? Because we're not used to those injuries, or even having to really think about it until it happens, right? And so, just
Exactly.
going back, I think that's going to be a recurring theme tonight is just proactive, being proactive and not reactive and whatnot. And we talked about the mental perspective. I think that's extremely important as well. Just the self talk, the anxiety, and how that can build up that tension, and really make you tight. And how, if you think about that injury, I even know some a lot of high school athletes, like, they may have gotten the offer, right, so they're trying to play not to get hurt because they're so worried about, oh, I got this offer, so let me not do this, and then they end up getting hurt anyway. So it's a lot of different things that go on with that. And you mentioned the red cord as well. I think that's anything like that, man, that can let you know where you stand, like you said, where your body is, or where it isn't. I think is extremely important. So thank you for sharing that. All right,
Yeah,
Dr.
thank you.
Reef, yeah, no problem, no problem. Dr. Reef, you're up next. So this is a question for you. When I think about the athletes that you work with, man, you work with some of the top athletes right now who are killing it. So what are some of the ways that you help your athletes develop a competitive edge and set themselves apart through training and rehab, uh, in the off season and during the season as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the big thing is our approach. We really try to look at it like, let's take the body as a whole. I mean, everyone says
Mm.
that, right? It's super important to do. Let's look at when our athletes come back, we take a total body assessment. We look at every joint, the
Mm.
way everything's moving. We do, gross muscle testing across the body. Look for any imbalances, left versus right. Very often an athlete will come and say, "Oh yeah, I'm great. I feel 100%." And then you start testing
Mhm.
things. You're like, "Well, this internal rotation of this hip's no good, and this abduction on this muscle is really weak compared to the other side," and things like that. So as we start diving a bit deeper, we can uncover these little imbalances and then focus on developing a program and attacking each of those little imbalances.
Mm.
That in and of itself is a major injury prevention, because just like the foundation of a house, you can't have it uneven and then think it's going to withstand a hurricane. So
Right.
super important. And then a big thing that I'm a big believer in as well is a lot of balance, proprioceptive training, and core stability, something I kind of call dynamic core stability, where we
Mm.
try to teach our athletes how to engage the core, which is so many different philosophies and ways to do that. Yoga is a great one. Pilates is a great one. There's so many different ways. I've really tried to incorporate a lot of it through the balance side, and teaching them how to engage recruitment from the hips, core, shoulders, all these areas, and then put them on very unstable surfaces and make them
Mm.
gradually complete harder tasks. And then as that becomes something that's tolerable and becomes easy, even though it seemed impossible in the beginning, we start to go multi-system and start to challenge maybe the hand-eye coordination with the stability, or something visual, or maybe visual and hand-eye with a cognitive component where they have to think about a task while they're balancing, while they're doing something else. So that core and that balance becomes like background noise, like a second nature feeling for them. So that's extremely important, because if we can improve body awareness, then we should be able to reduce the risk of injury. So
I love it, man. I love it, and especially what you said about total body assessment, because I was one of those where, like, when the season ended, if I didn't feel bad, I'm like, all right, I'm good. I can go on vacation. My knees aren't that banged up, or my body's not that banged up. I could just go get this massage, and I'm gonna be all right. And you're so right about that. Just getting that, knowing kind of your joints, and knowing just the different little, even the smallest things, man. I think it's so important, because we don't look at ourselves like a vehicle, but we are. Like, the same way you would take that car and you get it checked in, oil change, or whatever the case may be. We have to look at ourselves like that, like, especially at the pro level, when we are expected to be essentially like machines, man. So I appreciate what you said about that, and just not allowing yourself to be comfortable, or always challenging yourself to improve. I think that's something extremely important for us as athletes, because a lot of us, we sometimes have a good routine, right? But to your point, like, if you're doing the same thing that you did, year two, and now you're in year five, your body's breaking down a little bit more. So you need to challenge yourself a little bit more, and make yourself uncomfortable. So love what you shared, man. All right, Dr. Elamine, let's see. So your question is, what are some of the ways you help athletes accelerate their recovery after major injuries? It's for you, Doc.
So repeat that, Randy. I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, sure. So what are some of the ways? I know you deal with a lot of, shoulders, ACLs, like some
Right.
pretty devastating things. So what are some of the ways that you help athletes accelerate their recovery after major injuries?
I think one of the biggest things that I preach are sort of kind of three philosophies when I deal with these athletes. One is recovery, 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 recovery. How fast can you recover? What are you doing to recover? We're so, geared towards really, really training so much and taking things away from our body that we don't put things back into our body. And we find out a lot of injuries are overuse. A lot of them are associated with poor nutrition, which is huge. I think that any athlete that doesn't take in that, I don't care what level you are, I don't care if you're playing t-ball, if you don't have a good nutrition, things start breaking down. I think so. Getting nutrition is important, right? Then recovery, finding out why when you got injured, if I fix you, how can we get you back to that level? And then some of the things that you want to do is getting them to physical therapy extremely quickly. And as you know, as this helped you out, regenerative therapy. Regenerative therapy has been huge in helping people recover faster, get rid of their pain, as well as get rid of their inflammation so they can get back quicker. And when I mean regenerative therapy, that's the term of either using stem cells, PRP, some type of form to actually sort of kind of not alter, but enhance your body's ability to recover quickly. And so, as you know, a lot of pro athletes are doing it. A lot of high school athletes are doing it. Non-athletes are doing it. And it's allowing them to either avoid surgery and recover faster from surgery.
Awesome. Yeah, you're exactly right. And something that stuck out to me was definitely nutrition. Like,
Yes.
that's something a lot of us young athletes, especially, we don't think about. We eat whatever. I was one of those. I'm guilty, eating chicken nuggets, trying to hit 215, and that was my form of protein when I wasn't drinking shakes, or before I even knew about protein
Yeah.
shakes and creatine and things like that. But
You're absolutely right. There's not a high profile athlete that I don't take care, that I won't bring a nutrition into the corner. Because even if you find out you're working hard, you're doing all this stuff, and you're trying to keep them healthy, you find out their electrolytes are off, or their proteins or amino acids are off. Guess what? They're going to get injured. So you're working behind. You're working, from the beginning. You're working, trying to catch up. So, getting a new nutrition is where it really starts. I'm a huge fan of that.
Yeah, I love it. And regenerative therapy, like you said, I was one of those that had a pothole in my cartilage
Right,
around like 26. I mean, when we met, I mean, I
right,
was pretty much on my way out, and that's one of the
absolutely.
things that saved me. I tried so many different things. I think hyaluronic acid, PRP, like all types of
Right,
stuff, and stem cells is what did it for me, and
absolutely.
just knocked it out. Zero recovery time, really. I think it was like a month recovery time, but yeah,
Right,
it
absolutely.
got my knees back to like little league days, to where, and I'm still benefiting from it to this day. Like
Absolutely.
I can operate pretty smoothly. So
It's a game changer. I mean, and one thing you have to keep in mind is one thing that every athlete has in common. I don't care what sport you play. We'll all agree to this, I'm sure, is that you're going to get injured. It's not if, it's when. So the question is, I know I'm going to get injured. What is my team to get me back? And what is he going to use or she's going to use to help me get that back quicker and stay in the game? That's what it's
yeah,
about. Because as you said, once you walk away from the game, you want to be able to play with your kids someday. You want to be able to walk up and
mhm,
down the steps. You don't want to be 25 and have knees that look like you're 70.
yeah,
So, all those things are important.
awesome. Yeah, you're exactly right. I was definitely headed down that path. So I'm I'm glad I met you, man, and we were able to make that happen. So now I want to open it up to some questions to everybody. So, what tips or advice would you give to parents when it comes to helping their athletes maintain high performance, especially while they're at home? We know a lot of people are a lot of athletes are at home right now. So, what are some tips that you have? And anybody can answer this.
Sure, I'll jump in to start, I guess. So
Yeah.
I think a big thing, I touched on it earlier, but is making sure. Well, now that we're at home, we have the challenge of we don't have necessarily as much guidance as we normally would with a strength
Hmm.
and conditioning program or a injury prevention program and what it might be. So it's very important to as a parent get a little bit of education behind it. To Dr. Lemaine's point, making sure you have a good team around you to for support from medical team to performance, whatever it might be, even if that's off-site nowadays. And making sure that even though your athletes at home, they're doing a strength training program of some kind. That's where a lot of these injuries are coming from. As these athletes are getting back to sport, is they didn't have a real off season, they didn't have a real training, they didn't have a real preseason, and
Hmm.
they're trying to just jump back out there and get after it. And these injuries are to be expected. Um,
Hmm.
and with that is also just understanding the basics of to me, a lot of injuries come from uh, improper training and preparation in the sense of like, you know, you're not training in all three planes of movement, or you're not training in a way that you're simulating the demands that you're going to experience when you're playing your activity, or you're
Hmm.
considering your sport your type of training. So there's a saying, train to play, don't play to train. So you can't just do your sport and think that that counts as your exercise. You have to do strength training and things like that to be able to do your sport and prevent any type of injury.
Love it. Anybody else? Any tips or advice? You
I
sure?
think I think the biggest issue that I deal with a lot of parents is overuse things. What I mean by this is parents are sometimes push their kids too much.
Hmm.
And, a lot of times, a kid will be injured and they're afraid to tell their parents. And then the
Hmm.
parents will bring them in to me and they'll say, "Can he play tomorrow? Can he play tomorrow?" I'll say, "Well, he's got a torn MCL. No, he can't play tomorrow. Oh, he can push through it." You know what I mean? So a lot of it is trying to get these parents to understand that, it's okay. All right. No one gets a scholarship in the sixth grade. No one gets a
All
scholarship in
right.
sixth grade. But people get hurt in the sixth grade and never make it so they can get a scholarship.
Hmm.
So, and I also tell a lot of parents, look, a sixth grader doesn't have a driver license. So he can't drive himself to practice. He can't drive himself to the games. So if you're pushing this kid too much and he gets hurt from overuse injuries, you need to really back up
Hmm.
and look at other issues. That's very important.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. I love what you both shared. You sure you ain't got anything you want to add, Crystal?
I do actually. Now that he mentioned I have a lot of experience with the younger ones, and I just wanted to mention how well cross training is, not only for the strength and conditioning that Dr. Reef mentioned, but just doing other things outside your sport, which can help identify some other areas that are possible weak links or imbalances. So just keep them moving, doing different things. challenging
Yeah,
whatever they can.
I love it. Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I love what you said about sport specific training. So not just training just to train, not doing the same things over and over, like you said, Crystal, and then overuse is huge. And it's so easy to get in that culture of just pushing through, fight through, and even your coaches kind of get into that suck it up and get back out there type of mentality. But you really have to be smart and listen to your body and think about it for the long haul. So thank you guys for what you shared. The next question, and I'm gonna ask this, and then we're gonna get into our Q and A because we got a couple good questions. Um, how early should athletes start thinking about injury prevention?
I guess I'll jump.
Well,
Good.
I was just going to say, definitely from what you mentioned, Dr. Reef, too, in the off season. And I don't know if this question's about age or if it's about what time of the season, but you know,
Oh,
so for age, I mean, as we alluded to earlier, our bodies are always changing, and so our body awareness has to kind of follow that. So maybe I don't know how well some of these high school and middle school physicals are, which can help identify imbalances, but just working on body awareness throughout the whole childhood to all throughout the athlete's life is great. And then also the just training in the off season. And I'm sure, Doctor, if you have more to mention on that.
Yeah, I mean, you said a lot of the same points I was going to say for sure, but I think the question was how soon should we start, and the answer is yesterday.
mm,
There is no soon enough time, because it doesn't matter the age, it doesn't matter the time of the year. Because I was wondering the same thing, like, what is the question about age or time of year? But honestly, it doesn't matter either way. The answer is still yesterday. So
mm,
the sooner we can work, if it's youth, you're working on not only strength and injury prevention movements, but like literally learning to control the body better, because through adolescence they're still learning how to really control their body and learn movements.
mm,
And even as an adult, when you're learning how to do a new skill, your body, just like you were as a child, you have to learn the movement. So being on top of all of those types of mechanics along the way, and making sure that you're strengthening all those little muscles along the way that support things that aren't the big squat, bench, power lift muscles. That's the
right.
most important thing to be doing. So the sooner the better.
Love it.
I agree. I mean, it's got to be a part of the program from day one. It has
Mm,
to be just like you work on your cutting skills, your hitting, your batting. You have to work on prevention and recovery. It has to
mm,
be part of your program. If you think about it, right now, the top athletes that are doing well in football and basketball, the one thing that they all do, they have in common, is recovery and prevention and the money they put into their body. Look at what
true.
LeBron does. Look at what Brady does. These guys have made
Mm,
it quite clear. We spend more money, doing this and recovering, and that's why we're able to sustain it. You don't have to need a lot of money to do it. You just got to be aware of it and be conscious of it at a young age. That is so
mm,
important. If you look at the history of baseball, why is there a pitch count? There's a pitch count in Little League because dads and moms and coaches will let these kids play 7 innings 3 times a day, and they were
mm,
breaking their elbow. They were
jeez.
fracturing their elbow. Like you go up to throw, the elbow falls off, right? So they had to put in respect the pitch count. So that's why
Yeah,
they did that. It was really to protect it's almost like a union to protect the
right.
kids. And so,
Wow.
you have to do that. So parents have to be aware of that. And,
Mm,
or not, their kids are not going to make it.
dang. Yeah, that's powerful. And yeah, you guys are so right. I totally agree with starting yesterday because you form a lot of those habits when you're young and the thought processes. Like I was one of those who I didn't care for yoga at all. Like it just seemed like so soft, right? And like ballet, not knowing that this could be something that could really benefit me. And it wasn't until I was like 23, 24 that I started to notice the benefits of just flexibility and range of motion and those things. But I already know if I had started, at 10 years old, 11 years old, along with learning the fundamentals of the game and the techniques and all those things, it would have changed things dramatically for me and so many other athletes who had so many injuries that I saw. So yeah, powerful information. And for time, we will move forward to our first Q&A question. So this is for you, Dr. Reef. As a soon to be, this is for Cherie. Let me see if she's still on. All right, I'm gonna allow you to talk, Cherie, and ask your question. All right, are you on?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we sure can. So I
Hey,
want you to you're free to ask your question to Dr. Reef, man. This your shot.
awesome, man. Dr. Reed, first of all, I want to just say I've been following you for a pretty long time, and I love what you're doing, man. I love how you've been putting our profession on the map and all that stuff, man. It's awesome to see all these pro athletes, shouting you out on national television and all that stuff. But my question is, like, I want you to kind of go a little bit into your creative process. Um, how do you, where do you come up with all these crazy interventions that you do with your patients in order to like get their bodies right for the season?
Well, thank you so much for the kind words, first off, and it's awesome to meet you. So honestly, I get that question a lot, and people are always like, "Oh, where can I like read about these exercises?" Or send me a book for this, that, and I laugh because I'm like, I wish I had a book to read about these things too, because honestly, a lot of it is just one of my professors in PT school always said this, and he said it so well, and he was like, if you can just master anatomy and kinesiology, the rest is easy. So, just understanding the way the body moves and understanding the functional demands. So I always tell like my patients or my athletes, whatever it might be, you know, let's talk about a function or something specific on the field that's bothering you, or something that you
Mm,
feel like you wish you could improve, or whatever it might be. Like, for example, a few years ago, I think it was after Kamara's like rookie year, he talked to me about, you know, I'm breaking away all these runs, but like as I'm getting a few yards on the field, like I feel like I'm dragging. I can't really get my knees up, and like I'm still leaving people behind me. But I know that if I could, increase my stride or whatever, it would be a lot better. I just feel like heavy. So we went back, looked at some film, and said, okay, this is the issue.
mm,
We're lacking knee drive. You're not getting enough extension out of your down hip. You're not getting enough hip flexion out of your lead leg, whatever it might be. So let's start generating exercises based on that. So we need
mm,
to create strength. We need to create stability. We need to create power. We need to create endurance. So you just start breaking down things all based on that. And honestly, everything's just been a progression where as we come up with something and an athlete or a patient can master it, then you're looking at, all right, well, how do we take this to the next level? How do we make it harder? So it's really about just constantly challenging yourself and thinking about ways to just be function specific. Does that answer the question?
mm.
Yeah, that was perfect. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Good luck
Awesome,
to you.
man. Thanks for your question. All right, now we'll move on to another question from Josiah Thompson. We're gonna allow you to talk. He has a question for Crystal. Josiah, you there?
Yeah, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Crystal. So I know you mentioned something about the red cord earlier. I haven't heard about the red cord ever, and I'm curious as to what you use it for, when you use it, and what type of patients you use it on. If patients is the right word, or if you do it for preventative care of your athletes.
Yes, thank you for that question. And I'm so glad you asked, because to me, it's something I know a lot about, and I, forget that it's not widespread. So it's a way to improve your neuromuscular activation in your body. That's a really fancy way of saying, usually when we have either like surgery or even injections or an injury, we tend to have muscles that might turn off or just go to sleep and not work properly, which can affect your mechanics, whether you're walking, running, or doing your sport. So it's a tool that we use in our center to be able to identify and target those muscles that aren't awake. And if someone's in a lot of pain, we can rig up it's a bunch of slings and pulleys and bungees that help support you and activate and target certain muscles without any pain. So that tells your brain, oh, this feels good. I can use my glute, so I don't have to keep extending my back in a certain way. And that way, your body's actively getting that input, and it's going to keep remembering it. And then we take baby steps to where you need to get to something like what Dr. Reef does. And so I really use again, that mind body approach. Like, it sounds like we're tricking, but we're not really tricking your brain into that. And so this is, yes, for patients and athletes alike. if a patient comes in or a client or an athlete just one time, they're going to see the benefit after we do some testing to see where their imbalances are. Rennie tried it, so I don't know if he has any comments on that.
I was just gonna
Um,
say, yeah.
yeah, you can say your experience.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helped me a lot. Just as everybody shared, just having that awareness and being knowledgeable of what those weaknesses are. When I tore my patella tendon, I definitely had a lot of muscles that went to sleep and still haven't woken back up. So my thing was just not to be negligent and just say, "Oh, I'm not playing anymore, so I don't need this anymore." And this happened back in 2017. So although some of the muscles came back on, I still noticed like some numbness and some just like areas where that weren't the same since I've been done playing. So getting with her really helped me when it came to just being more knowledgeable and understanding those weak areas that can be improved. And so definitely think it's an important tool. Does that help, Josiah?
Yeah, it's awesome. That's awesome. I'm looking at the page right now. It looks pretty cool. I'm very interested in it.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, make sure you connect with Crystal after this. We're gonna get everybody to share their contact information and everything shortly. So moving forward, I got a question from Lauren Warren, who is that's a tongue twister, but she's a parent of a linebacker like myself. So she said, actually, I'll bring you on, Lauren, so you can ask your question. I got to give you a special shout out. You're a special mom. Got a linebacker for a son. I know you worry. So can you hear us, or can you have the ability to talk? There we go. You there? Hey, Lauren. All right. I don't know if your mic's working or not, but I will go ahead and ask the question for you. Lauren says, "My son is a linebacker, very physical. I'm concerned with spinal degeneration and foraminal stenosis." I know you know what that is, Doc. So, foraminal stenosis in his later years. What can he do now to prevent injury that manifests in his later years in life?
Okay, I saw the comments. Concerned about spinal degeneration and foraminal stenosis in his later years. I think the most important thing is good core strengthening. I think we all would agree that anytime you're dealing with spinal cord injuries or preventing spinal cord injuries or degeneration, it's good core training. Right? I think so. Good proper technique, tackling and hitting, and also just basically giving it time to rest if he does get injured. I tell parents that if there's any concerns or issues that someone has back pain, take them to the doctor, get them evaluated, especially in young kids because their growth plates are still open. So a lot of times they can have a growth plate fracture and that can lead to other things. Or sometimes they can have a herniated disc in a young kid. So that back pain, I take that very seriously. I get images on them, and I'll rest them and put them in a brace if need be. Because, like you said, if you do that and then send them to rehab, and a lot of times you can good core strengthening, and then agreeing with both Dr. Reef and Crystal that you can get them back and they can just be stronger than ever. So issues.
Awesome. Anybody else want to add to that? How you can avoid those later injuries in life? That's it.
I think you said it all.
All right. Well, we'll move on. I hope that answers your question, Lauren. And next person, Amanda O'Brien, just going back, she asked a question early on in the show. What would be some of the suggestions to be proactive when it comes to shin splints? Any exercises or preventative measures to start before the season starts? And,
I'll jump in to start, I guess. So, a couple of things I would recommend with that is just really, again, this is talking about some of those little muscle strengthening a lot of people are failing to do, So, how many of these youth athletes, how many pro athletes are really doing four-way ankle exercises, So, very important to work on, strengthening some of those movements with the ankles going up and side to side, everyone does calves, but no one's really doing the other directions. So very important to make sure we're working all those muscles to prepare. And then everything, it needs to be about progression, right? So if they go from the couch to full speed practice, for preseason, then they're more likely to light up with, with shin splints. If they haven't done anything, and they said, man, practice starts next week. Let me go run 3 miles today. You're going to have shin splints tonight, So it's a matter. We got to do things slowly and progressively and prepare in advance. And that's why programming is so important, to make sure that you're taking the time to know, okay, I need to be in tip top shape at this date. Therefore, I'm going to start at this date, and I can progressively work my way back. So I think that's a big thing, but I'm sure you guys have some more ideas for us.
I was just going to say the prevention part is key. And again, I suffered from this. So I did not feel better until I ended my sport, which was unfortunate. So I just couldn't get over the hump. And sometimes that happens to us. So if we can get ahead of it like that and see where the imbalances are, that'd be great.
As far as I'm concerned, I usually see shin splints when they've failed conservative therapy, they've gone to a physical therapist, and it's just not gotten better. Like I said, they're ready to either give up their sport, and they don't know exactly what to do. They're really frustrated. And one of my approaches with that is, what you find out is, I always get laboratory work on people's shin splints. 9 times out of 10, I'll find that there is something wrong. Their calcium's off, their vitamin D is off. You know what I mean? There's a hormonal imbalance, their cycle off, their nutrition is off, their diet is bad. And so even if you rest and you don't correct those things, then guess what? They're just going to go right back, and it's going to be a repetitive cycle. So a lot of times it's changing the sort of kind of approach that got them into trouble. That's so important. And then also getting imaging. You'll be amazed at, how many times I get an MRI and I'll see thickening of the cortex. And I'll see a small true fracture. That not only a shin splint, but it's actual fracture. So then that requires unloading, may need surgery, may need a rod. So, typically, shin splints are hard. And a lot of it has to do with, again, being balanced, like they said earlier.
I love it. All right. So we have another question for Dr. Reef. What's your view on chiropractic adjustments?
I personally think that spinal manipulation is a great technique. It depends. The big thing I think that there's the jury's always out on with that is not so much on the intervention itself, but what's the overall treatment look like, right? So I think where people get into trouble is if it's a crack and leave kind of a technique. That's not going to work, right? You're just creating hypermobility. You're not following that up with stability. You're not following it up with strength. You're not addressing other imbalances in the body, flexibility. I mean, that should be one tiny tool in a big toolbox of what you're using to approach any type of patient's treatment. So I think that's the big thing. But of course, there's times where that's absolutely, warranted and will be very helpful, but it can't be the whole treatment. That's my opinion. I don't know if you guys have anything else to maybe add to that.
I was just going to say, similar to some of the neuromuscular activation things we try to do with our treatments, that's just another tool that we use or that a chiropractor can use. And again, it needs to be well-rounded with some active mobility and muscle tissue.
I mean, for the most part, every pro team has a chiropractor, right? So I'm chiropractor friendly. I believe in it, but Dr. Reef, I'm with you. You just have to have a plan, right? It has to be a part of the overall care of getting better. So an adjustment left alone by itself is not going to be effective. It really isn't. But adjustment with, like you said, stability, working on the core muscles, doing what you need to do, or interventions from a surgeon or whatever, that is part of the team that you need.
Awesome. I totally agree. We got one more question for you, Dr. Elamine, to close us out, and I'm going to try to combine the two. But do you think that regenerative therapy is going to be more widely accepted in the near future? And then also, is regenerative injections used as preventative in the spine? So those are two
So
kind of combined questions.
yeah, yes and yes, right? I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna say which high school, but one of the high schools I take care of, I've used regenerative medicine and gotten back some high-profile athletes that are vying to get scholarships to injuries that could be season-ending injuries. So we're starting to see it in the mainframe, as long as it's done in the correct way. That's so important. So it is becoming mainstream. A lot of athletes are using it. Some athletes are on regimens where they get injections 3 times a season. You know, the thing you have to keep in mind is the number one reason why it's sort of kind of gained such a huge push and a lot of people are using it is because the number one reason why people lose money in professional sports is because of injury and or your medical condition that a doctor can prove that you don't have longevity left in your career, right? So every player gets an MRI from head to toe. They go in a room, you evaluate them, and then that team says, well, we would give you a max deal, but your knees look like you're only 40, so we're going to give you a third of that and give you a 2-year contract. See you later, bye. So regenerative medicine has been a way in which to recover quickly, help clean up your images, help clean up your cartilage defects or whatever, or your tendon injuries. And so that's why you're seeing a lot of athletes, go to it because it's safe. It's safe and it's a natural way of healing.
Thanks for sharing that. Well, we are out of time. So thank you all so much for your questions. Hope you guys got a lot of value out of that. Now we're going to turn it back to our panelists one last time to give some final thoughts just when it comes to injury prevention. And then also want you to let the audience know how they can get in touch with you. I'm sure you'll have a lot of people reaching out. Hopefully a lot of them will be coming to visit you all as well to get some of those services. I don't know if I can afford you guys, but I was kidding. Oh man, no, I'm just kidding. I don't need it, thankfully. No more injections for me. Oh man.
I
So
don't
I'll
know.
start with the
Quad. You may need some more
yeah.
injections.
I don't speak that over my life, Doc. I'm feeling good. Oh man. So we'll start off with Crystal. Crystal, just give us your final thoughts and how the audience can get in touch with you as well.
Yeah, just be open to kind of improving body awareness for any type of athlete. I think that would be the best way to start preventing injuries. The way you can get a hold of me on Instagram, I'm very active. It's Crystal Ray Yogi, KrystalRae, Yogi. And then also at Active Core Atlanta. Active Core is spelled ACTIVCORE. That is in Druid Hills, about 2 miles northeast of Emory, and that's where I have my practice. Yeah, that's where you can get a hold of me.
Awesome. If you want to post it in the
Thank
chat
you
area.
for having me, Rennie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
No
I can do
problem.
that too. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Dr. Elamine, you're up. And I think Dr. Reef was next in line.
So, I mean, first of all, thank you for having us. I think this is awesome. I think,
Yes, sir.
you're a trailblazer by really talking about prevention because a lot of people the big sort of kind of elephant or peak elephant in the room is injury, right? No one wants to talk about it. People don't bring it up. Don't talk about it, but it happens. And a lot of athletes are not equipped with the mental capacity to deal with being injured, and injury is a part of the game. It really is. And so you really preaching preventative, measures is very, very important, and putting that into coaches, high school kids, and sort of kind of professional levels because it's important. It's important. It's the difference between whether or not you can play at the next level. So I think that's so. Kudos to you on this, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. Very, very important. As far as reaching me, my clinic is in Lawrenceville, Georgia. Elamine Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. As far as social media is concerned, my Instagram is Dr. Elamine Sports Medicine. And any questions, I'll put all my stuff I'll put my information in the chat as well. But love to take care of anybody, and doesn't matter. No question. I tell a lot of these athletes, no question should go unanswered when it comes to your health.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Doc. All right, Dr. Reef, close us out, man. Final thoughts and how everybody can get in touch with you.
For sure. Again, Rennie, thanks so much, and
Yeah,
Dr. Elamine and Dr. Sterling, thank you so much for joining us all on this. This was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed getting to chat with everybody and hear similar mindsets come together. So that's always awesome.
yeah.
Final thoughts on just injury prevention. Something we always say as well: the best ability is availability. So
Mm.
be healthy and you need to be able to be ready to go in order to play in sport. So take advantage of it now. And again, just to harp on Dr. Ellermine's points, think total body, think multi-system, think nutrition, think musculoskeletal, think all these things at the same time. So that's super big. But to find me, I'm on Instagram at Dr. spelt out _Reef, REEF. Also, my clinic is Athletics, ATHLETIX Rehab. That's at Athletics Rehab. And we're down here in Miami. We have locations Miami, Fort Lauderdale, making our way up to Delray Beach now. So we'll eventually climb our way maybe up to Georgia. We'll see. I don't know. But
Yeah, man.
if any of you guys
Come
are
to
ever down,
Atlanta.
please look me up and come say hello. So and I'll drop myself in the box. But thank you guys, and I hope we got everybody their questions answered.
Awesome, awesome. Man, amazing panel tonight. Dr. Sterling, Dr. Elamine, Dr. Reef. I learned so much. My head's about to explode just from all the different things I learned. And I wish that I could have, learned about you all and worked with you all early in my career. Who knows where I would have been. But, now it's my duty, my mission to make sure that you all are able to be exposed to the younger athletes in the next generation who are coming up. Like I said, I had guys who were older than me that really exposed me to just preventative injury measures and things like the hyperbaric chamber and all those different things when I was in my second year at University of Georgia. And at that time, I worked with a guy named Michael Hatrick, and he helped me to start to understand just the importance of your body and all those different things. So I want to tell you all so much that I appreciate you taking your time, and I hope you attendees appreciate them as well. Everybody listening on Facebook Live, because everybody on here has such extremely busy schedule. So I just want to let you all know that I really, really appreciate your time. And I'm going to send you all a free pair of these headphones as well, just as a gift from me. So, thank you so much again for everything that you shared. And last but not least, I want to give a special thanks once again to Sports Turf, to Rhythm Communications with Amy Parrish and Rob Kramer, and Caroline as well behind the scenes on the ones and twos. And last but not least, once again, my name is Rennie Curran. I'm a former professional athlete, keynote speaker, and author and the CEO of Game Changer Coaching. And I want to thank you all again for joining us on the Athlete to Athlete series. We have 2 more episodes left, and we have some more exciting guests next week. We will be talking about leveraging your platform as an athlete. So I hope you all will join us again next week. And thank you so much. Make sure that you get in touch with our panelists, ask them any questions, go visit them, support their business. And wish you all a great night.